You land at JFK after a long international flight, 5 months away from home. You're exhausted, jet-lagged, and all you can think about is finally getting back to your apartment, your routine, your life. You walk through immigration the way you've done it before, familiar, almost automatic. You hand the officer your green card. He scans it. The machine beeps. But instead of the quick nod you were expecting, the officer pauses. His eyes move to the screen. Something shifts in his expression. He looks back at you and says something that makes your stomach drop completely. Step aside for a moment. A second officer approaches. He gestures toward a camera. Face forward. Don't move. Don't smile. There's a flash. Your photo is taken. You tell yourself it's just routine. But what most travelers never find out is that this photo is not just a photo. It is the entry point into a biometric tracking system that now records every single time you cross an American border, coming in or going out. And something new has quietly begun happening at airports all across the country. Green card holders who believed everything was fine are suddenly being flagged the moment their card hits that scanner. A red indicator blinks on the officer's screen. A number appears next to the traveler's name. Sometimes it reads 183 days, sometimes 190, sometimes even more. And within seconds, the officer asks the one question that carries the power to change everything. Why were you outside the United States for so long? What happens in the next 5 minutes will determine whether you walk out of that airport and go home, or whether your green card gets taken and your future in America becomes uncertain. Most people assume the danger is the biometric photo itself. But that is not the real trap. The real trap is what the computer already knows about you before the officer says a single word. Because the instant that card was scanned, the system pulled up a complete timeline of your travel history. Every departure, every return, every day you spent outside the country. And if that number crosses a certain threshold, the officer's role changes instantly. What started as a routine entry inspection can become a legal investigation about whether you abandoned your permanent residence in the United States. And here's the part that catches people completely off guard. The officer does not need to prove anything yet. He simply asks questions. And the answers that green card holders give in those moments, especially when nervous and exhausted, can end up becoming the very evidence that works against them. People talk too much. They panic. They launch into long emotional stories about family emergencies or unexpected delays. But inside that airport booth, every sentence you say can be written down and filtered through immigration law. And once that happens, the situation escalates quickly. Secondary inspection, unfamiliar forms placed in front of you, questions you were never prepared for. Hi, I'm Sophia, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly what's happening at US airports right now under the new biometric entry and exit rules that quietly took effect at the end of 2025. I want to break this down in plain language so you understand what immigration officers are seeing on their screens, why certain travelers are facing more aggressive questioning, and most importantly, what you can do to protect yourself. By the end of this video, you'll understand 3 critical things. First, what the new biometric system actually does every time you cross an American border. Second, why green card holders are being flagged so much more easily now. And third, the exact communication strategy that immigration attorneys recommend so you don't accidentally create problems for yourself. On December 26, 2025, the Department of Homeland Security expanded something called the Biometric Entry-Exit Program. Under the updated rule, facial recognition photography became mandatory every single time a non-US citizen enters or exits the United States. This doesn't only apply to tourists or visa holders. It applies to every person who is not a US citizen, including lawful permanent residents, international students, and temporary workers. Even groups that were previously exempt are now included. Children as young as 14, elderly travelers who once avoided biometric screening. Every time that camera captures your face, the system links the image to a specific travel event, a departure, an arrival, a location, a date. Over time, those events build a detailed digital map of every movement you've made in and out of the country. The system no longer relies on passport stamps or manual records. It constructs an automated travel history that any officer can access in real time the instant your green card is scanned. And this data is not stored temporarily. According to the policies governing the program, this information can be retained for decades, in some cases, up to 75 years. Every crossing becomes a permanent entry in a long-term federal database. Here is why this matters so deeply for green card holders. Permanent residency comes with a specific legal expectation. You are supposed to maintain your primary residence in the United States. That has always been the rule. But in the past, officers often had to piece together a travel history through conversation. Today, the picture assembles itself automatically. If you left and came back 187 days later, the officer sees that number the moment he looks at his screen. He doesn't need to estimate or ask around. And so instead of figuring out how long you were gone, his attention shifts entirely to a different question. Why were you gone that long? And does it suggest that your real life is now centered somewhere outside the United States? This is where the 6-month guideline comes in, and it is one of the most misunderstood ideas in all of immigration law. Many people believe there is a hard rule. Stay outside the United States for more than 6 months, and you automatically lose your green card. That is not how the law works. There is no automatic cancellation. What does happen is that once an absence crosses that general time frame, it raises serious questions about whether the permanent resident truly intends to continue living in the United States. And those questions are exactly what immigration officers are trained to explore when someone returns after a long trip abroad. Now here is the part that surprises people most, and it is the most important thing in this entire video. When officers ask why you were abroad for so long, your instinct will be to explain everything. Your mother was sick. You were managing property. You lost track of time. These explanations feel honest and reasonable, and they are. But inside that inspection booth, they get written down in a very different way. If you say you were caring for a sick parent, an officer might record it as, "Traveler remained abroad to care for family member." In immigration law, that sentence can be read as evidence that your primary obligations are outside the United States. If you say you were handling business or property overseas, that might be recorded as maintaining economic ties abroad, a phrase that carries enormous weight in residency evaluations. Even saying "I didn't realize how long the trip had gotten" can be noted as individual appeared unaware of residency obligations. When several statements like these stack up in a single inspection record, they unintentionally build a portrait suggesting your real life exists somewhere other than the United States. This is why immigration attorneys warn about something that feels counterintuitive at first. Sometimes the most damaging mistake a person makes at the airport is talking too much. Not because honesty is wrong, but because unstructured, emotional explanations can accidentally tell the wrong story. The strategy attorneys recommend is surprisingly simple but extremely powerful. Answer only what was asked, keep it factual, and always anchor your response to one core truth. Your residence is in the United States, and the trip was temporary. If the officer asks why you were gone so long, a response like, "I was visiting family, and I always intended to return home to the United States," does exactly what it needs to do. It answers the question. It confirms the trip was temporary. And it centers the one fact that matters most under immigration law. If questioning continues, and sometimes it does, stay with the same approach. If the officer asks what ties you maintain in the United States, briefly mention the specifics: your job, your apartment, your tax filings, your immediate family living here. Keep each answer short and truthful. You are not building a legal argument at the airport. You are simply reinforcing, calmly and consistently, that your life is based in the United States. There is one more moment you need to be prepared for: secondary inspection. If the officer tells you to proceed to a separate area for additional review, do not panic. Secondary inspection does not automatically mean something bad is about to happen. It means another officer will take more time to examine your situation. During that process, you have an important right that many travelers don't know exists. You are allowed to request guidance before answering complex questions that could affect your immigration status. A calm way to express this is simply, "I would like to speak with a supervisor," or "I'd like the opportunity to seek legal guidance before answering further." This is not refusing to cooperate. It is communicating clearly that you understand the seriousness of the situation and want to handle it properly. The most critical warning about secondary inspection is this: you may be presented with a form for the voluntary abandonment of your permanent resident status. This document formally records that you are giving up your green card. Some travelers sign it simply because they are exhausted and want the stressful situation to end. Do not sign it. Ever. Unless you fully understand what it means and have had the chance to speak with a legal professional. If that form is placed in front of you, calmly say, "I have no intention of abandoning my permanent resident status, and I would like to speak with an immigration attorney before signing anything." That one sentence can protect everything. And if things escalate further, if an officer signals an intention to take action against your status, know this. Lawful permanent residents generally cannot be removed from the United States by a border officer alone without due process if they contest the decision. You can request that the matter be reviewed by an immigration judge. Asking for that hearing sends a clear signal that you are contesting the claim, and it ensures the outcome is decided through a proper legal process, not a pressured conversation at an airport booth. Now, the single most powerful thing you can do is prepare before you travel. If you know a trip might extend into several months, apply for a re-entry permit before you leave. This is a document issued by U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services that formally demonstrates your intention to maintain your U.S. residence even while you are abroad for an extended period. It does not eliminate all questions, but it creates strong documented evidence that your absence was planned and sanctioned within the immigration system. Beyond that document, keep your U.S. ties visible and active. Maintain your employment, keep your lease or home, file your taxes as a resident, keep your bank accounts open, and make sure your daily life remains anchored here. These are the factors immigration authorities examine. When they are well documented, they become your strongest protection. What we are witnessing right now is a permanent shift in how immigration enforcement operates. Biometric identification, automated travel records, and interconnected federal databases have become the backbone of modern border control. The system now sees your movements with precision that was simply not possible before. Long absences are visible, travel patterns are recorded, and the questions an officer asks when you return are shaped by what is already on his screen before you speak a single word. This does not mean permanent residents are being unfairly targeted. It means the era of data-driven immigration enforcement has arrived, and understanding how that data is interpreted is one of the most important forms of protection you can have. So let's come back to where we started. You step off the plane after months abroad. You hand the officer your green card. It gets scanned. The biometric camera captures your image. A timeline of your travel history appears on a screen. If you don't understand any of this, that moment feels terrifying. But now picture the same moment with knowledge on your side. You know the system tracks entries and exits automatically. You know that extended absences raise residency questions. You know that immigration law looks at the totality of your circumstances, not just a single number. And you know exactly how to respond calmly and clearly if questions come. Instead of panicking, you keep your answers factual, grounded, and focused on the one truth that matters. Your residence is in the United States, and the trip was temporary. Knowledge turns a frightening encounter into a conversation you were prepared to have. If you know other green card holders who travel regularly or have family abroad, please share this with them, because most people only discover these issues after something has already gone wrong. Staying informed, planning carefully, and knowing your rights are the most reliable ways to protect your status and your future in the United States. I'm Sophia, and I'll see you in the next video.